Chosen one, stop for a moment and listen with your whole spirit. Do not move past this. Do not treat this as another message. Heaven did not let your eyes land here by accident, because what has been shifting around you is far bigger than a mood, a season, or a strange feeling you cannot explain. The people who underestimated you are beginning to feel something. They may not say it. They may smile the same way. They may still act like nothing has changed. But in the spirit, they know the version of you they controlled is no longer available. And that is why the atmosphere around your name feels different now. This is not about revenge. Hear me clearly. This is not about proving yourself to people who were too blind to honor you. God is doing something through you that cannot be reduced to payback. Because what is rising in you is not anger, it is authority under control. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your gentleness meant permission. They thought your patience meant they could delay you forever. But what they failed to understand is that God often hides the most dangerous vessel behind the softest voice, and He lets people misread it until the appointed time comes. Now that time is moving. You can feel it. Your spirit knows something has shifted. The old conversations do not pull you in the same way. The old insults do not pierce as deeply, and even when they try to provoke you, something inside you refuses to give them the reaction they remember. That is why they are uneasy. Not because you attacked them, not because you spoke against them, not because you suddenly became cruel. They are uneasy because the access they once had to your emotions, your explanations, your loyalty, and your energy is being revoked by heaven. You may have noticed it in small ways. Someone watches your stories but says nothing. Someone brings up your name in rooms where you are not present. Someone who dismissed you now studies your movements because they can sense a door opening over your life that they cannot close. Do not ignore that feeling. Do not call it paranoia. Do not call it pride. Your discernment has been waking up, and when discernment wakes up in a chosen one, the enemy loses one of his favorite hiding places. He can no longer dress manipulation as concern or disrespect as honesty. You have been feeling different because you are different. Your tolerance for false energy has dropped. Your desire to explain yourself has weakened. Your need to be included has started to die quietly. And that death is terrifying to people who only felt powerful when you needed their approval. Some of you have been waking in the deep hours of the night, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, eyes open before the alarm. Chest heavy, mind alert, spirit stirred. You thought it was stress, but your spirit was receiving instructions while your flesh was still trying to understand the weight. Some of you keep seeing repeated numbers, 1111, 777, 444. You pass them on receipts, clocks, license plates, and screens. You try to brush it off, but something in you pauses each time, because heaven has been marking your attention before it marks your next door. And some of you have been having dreams that feel too heavy to be random. Faces from your past, rooms you never entered, conversations that wake you with a strange pressure in your chest. These are not just dreams, they are spiritual alerts, and your spirit has been trying to warn you that your rank has changed. That is why old relationships feel strange now. You can sit with the same people, hear the same voices, and still feel like you are no longer sitting in the same place. The body is present, but the spirit has moved. And once God moves your spirit, your old environment starts exposing itself. You are not imagining the distance. You are not making things up. Something that used to feel familiar now feels heavy. Something that used to entertain you now drains you. Something you once begged to keep now feels like a chain. Because God is teaching your soul the difference between connection and captivity. They underestimated you because they only measured what you showed them. They measured your quietness. They measured your forgiving heart. They measured the years you stayed, served, waited, and absorbed pain without announcing it. but they never measured the God who was forming you in secret. They saw your low season and called it failure. They saw your waiting and called it delay. They saw your isolation and called it rejection. They saw your tears and called it weakness. But heaven saw training, pruning, protection, and preparation happening in places they were not qualified to enter. That is why this message had to find you now. You are standing at the edge of a new version of yourself, and the old voices are trying to pull you back into the identity they understood. They do not need you destroyed, they only need you familiar, because familiar means manageable. Listen carefully. The enemy is not always trying to make you evil. Sometimes he only tries to make you explain yourself until you are exhausted. Sometimes he only tries to make you chase approval until your purpose becomes blurry. Sometimes he only sends familiar voices to remind you who you used to be. But you are not who you used to be. Something in you has stopped begging. Something in you has stopped bending. Something in you has stopped offering your peace as payment for being accepted. And that is the first sign that God has begun separating you from emotional slavery. This is why your silence has weight now. It is not empty. It is not passive. It is not fear wearing a mask. Your silence has become a boundary. And when a chosen one stops explaining, people who lived on access begin to feel the loss before they can name it. They expected another apology. They expected another long message. They expected you to fix what you did not break, carry what you did not create, and soften truth so they could stay comfortable. But this time, you did not perform the old role, and that refusal shook something in the unseen realm. There are people who only felt safe around the smaller version of you. They liked you tired. They liked you uncertain. They liked you generous without boundaries. They liked the way you questioned your own discernment, because as long as you doubted yourself, they could keep writing the story for you. But God is taking the pen back. That is why you feel restless. That is why your spirit rejects certain rooms now. That is why you cannot laugh at the same jokes, agree with the same lies, or pretend that disrespect is harmless just because it comes from someone familiar. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming clear. You are not becoming arrogant, you are becoming aligned. You are not losing love, you are losing the fear that made you call bondage loyalty. And heaven is not going to apologize for setting you free. So stay with this message. The next layer is going to show you why they were allowed to underestimate you for so long, and why God used their blindness as a covering until your spirit was ready. What they feared most was not your anger, it was your freedom. Chosen one, the reason they underestimated you is not because you were empty. It is because God hid your weight under a quiet exterior. They saw your gentleness and assumed there was no fire. They saw your patience and assumed there was no line. But heaven was not making you weak. Heaven was making you difficult to corrupt. You were not losing power in that season. You were being rewired. Every delay that made you cry was pulling your identity away from human permission, and every door that stayed shut was teaching your spirit to stop begging for entrance where God had not assigned you to stay. That is why the rejection hurt so deeply. It touched an old wound. It made you question your value. It made you wonder if maybe they were right about you. But the pain was never proof that you were small. It was the place where God began separating your worth from their response. So let me reframe this for you now. They did not underestimate you because you had no value. They underestimated you because your value was not speaking their language yet. They measured volume, image, status, and noise, while God was measuring endurance, purity, obedience, and spiritual weight. That is why they missed you. They were looking for something loud. God was building something deep. They were impressed by people who could perform strength in public, while heaven was forming a vessel that could carry authority without needing applause. God often hides a chosen vessel in the exact place where insecure people will misjudge them. He lets the wrong people dismiss you early because their dismissal becomes part of the protection around your assignment. If they had recognized you too soon, they would have tried to use what God was building. Some people only wanted access to your gift while ignoring your pain. Some wanted your kindness, but not your truth. Some wanted your help, but not your healing. Some wanted the warmth of your presence, but they did not want the responsibility of honoring the soul that carried it. You thought you were being abandoned. You were being extracted. You thought you were losing connection. You were losing captivity. You thought the silence meant God had forgotten you, but the silence was heaven removing your appetite for people who only loved the version of you they could benefit from. This is why your growth felt lonely. The moment God began raising your standard, certain people began calling you distant. The moment your spirit started rejecting disrespect, they called you changed. The moment your peace became more important than their comfort, they acted like you had betrayed them. But you did not betray them. You stopped betraying yourself. You stopped handing your soul to people who only valued you when you were useful. You stopped calling exhaustion loyalty, and you stopped calling confusion love, and heaven began to breathe on the part of you that had been buried. Listen closely. You are not dangerous because you became cruel. You are dangerous because you are becoming clear. You are dangerous because your peace no longer needs permission. You are dangerous because the enemy cannot pull you back into the same emotional trap with the same familiar voice. There is something I need to place here gently. I am not bringing this up to interrupt the message, but to honor what some of you are already sensing. There is a tool connected to this kind of restoration, and for a few of you, your spirit will recognize why it matters before your mind finishes analyzing it. It is called the Genius Song. It is a short audio created around brain entrainment and gamma reactivation, the kind of God-given sharpness connected to clarity, intuition, and that flow many chosen ones felt when they were younger, before life covered it with pressure, fear, and mental noise. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment for those who already know this is speaking to them. But do not rush away from the message. The tool is not the center of this moment. The deeper truth is that God is restoring the part of you that stopped trusting your own discernment. Stay here. Let this settle. Because the reason your mind has felt foggy, your spirit has felt heavy, and your decisions have felt delayed, is not always because you are broken. Sometimes it is because you have been carrying voices that were never assigned to guide you. They underestimated you by teaching you to underestimate yourself. That was the deeper strategy. It was never just about them ignoring you. It was about making you agree with their blindness until you started shrinking your own prayers and lowering your own expectation of what God could do through you. But that agreement is breaking. You can feel it. Something in you is rising without asking for permission. Something in you is becoming tired of hiding holy fire under the language of humility. True humility does not mean pretending God did not place something powerful inside you, but heaven is correcting that confusion. God is not asking you to become loud for no reason. He is not asking you to become proud. He is not asking you to become hard. He is asking you to stop confusing spiritual maturity with allowing people to mishandle what He has anointed. That is why they are terrified now. They feel the old agreement breaking. They can sense that you are no longer negotiating with the chains that once held you. You can still love people, but you no longer have to let them define the size of your obedience. There is a difference between forgiveness and access. There is a difference between peace and passivity. There is a difference between humility and hiding. You are learning those differences now, and every difference you learn becomes another locked door against manipulation. They may call you different. Let them. They may say you changed. Let them. They may say you think you are better now. Let them. People who benefited from your confusion will always mislabel your clarity, because your clarity removes the control they never had permission to keep. This is not revenge. This is restoration. This is not punishment against them. This is protection over you. God is not building you so you can humiliate the people who missed you. He is building you so their blindness never becomes your ceiling again. So do not run back just because they notice you now. Do not soften the boundary just because they suddenly sound kind. Do not confuse attention with repentance. Some people are not returning because they love who you are. They are returning because they feel they are losing access to who you used to be. The next layer will go even deeper. Because when God allows a chosen one to be underestimated, He is often following a pattern that has been seen before in Scripture. David was overlooked before he was anointed. Joseph was rejected before he was positioned. Moses was hidden before he was sent. So stay with me. What comes next will show you why your hidden season was never wasted, and why the attack against your confidence was never random. They thought they were watching you disappear, but heaven was teaching you how to carry power without needing to be seen. Chosen one. The pattern did not begin with you. Heaven has always allowed the chosen vessel to be misread before the assignment becomes visible. This is why you cannot measure your future by how people treated you in your hidden season, because many people only recognize oil after it starts flowing publicly. Look at David. Before a crown ever touched his head, he was in the field with sheep. His own family did not place him in the center. His father did not present him first. His brothers did not treat him like a king in formation. But God saw what the house overlooked, and heaven had already marked him before people respected him. That is why you must stop grieving over who did not recognize you. Some people were never assigned to see the whole picture. They only saw the field. They only saw the sheep. They only saw the ordinary covering. But God was building courage, worship, endurance, and authority where no crowd could interrupt the process. David was underestimated because his strength did not look like Saul. He did not arrive with the armor people expected. He did not look trained according to their standard. But when Goliath stood in front of Israel, the one they overlooked carried the exact authority needed for the battle. This is your pattern too. They looked at your quiet life and called it nothing. They looked at your private tears and called it weakness. They looked at your slow season and called it failure. But heaven was training your hands for battles that loud people could not survive. You did not need their applause in the field. You needed God there. You did not need a crowd to validate your anointing. You needed pressure, isolation, and obedience. And while they thought you were being forgotten, God was teaching you how to move without needing human celebration. Now look at Joseph. His own brothers could not handle what God showed him. They did not just dislike his dream. They hated the future hidden inside him. They saw his favor as a threat, because insecure people often interpret divine calling as personal offense. Joseph was not attacked because he was empty. He was attacked because he carried evidence. His dream exposed the difference between what they could see and what God had already spoken. And when someone carries a future that others cannot control, the spirit of jealousy starts trying to bury what heaven is trying to raise. That is why your rejection felt so targeted. It was not random. Some people did not just dislike your personality. Something in them reacted to your assignment before you even understood it. They may not have had language for it, but their spirit recognized a weight that their pride refused to honor. Joseph went into the pit before the palace. He went into accusation before authority. He went into waiting before elevation. But every place that looked like delay became part of the route, because God was not just taking him somewhere. God was preparing him to carry what waited there. This is why you cannot curse the pit too quickly. The pit revealed who could not handle your future. The waiting room revealed what still needed to mature in you. The false accusation revealed that your name could survive what your emotions thought would destroy you. You are still here. That matters. You were talked about, but you are still here. You were ignored, but you are still here. You were misunderstood, but you are still here. And the fact that you survived what was meant to make you bitter is proof that God has been doing something deeper than comfort. Moses carried this pattern too. He was hidden before he was sent. He lived between identities before he became a deliverer. He had to lose one version of belonging before he could stand before Pharaoh with a voice that carried the weight of heaven. Do you see the pattern now? God hides before he reveals. God separates before he sends. God allows misunderstanding before he gives authority. And the season you called rejection may have been the wilderness where your spirit learned not to depend on the applause of Egypt. Moses did not become powerful because people understood him. He became powerful because God met him in the hidden place. The burning bush did not appear in a palace. It appeared in the wilderness. That should tell you something about where God often speaks to the person he is about to use. This is why your lonely season had fire in it. You thought you were just tired. You thought you were just isolated. You thought you were being pushed out of rooms because you were not enough. But the wilderness was teaching you a voice that crowds would have diluted. The people who underestimated you only saw the separation. They did not see the encounter. They saw distance, but God saw consecration. They saw you becoming quiet, but heaven saw your hearing becoming sharper. They saw you losing people, but God saw you losing noise. Now here is where it goes deeper. The same pattern moves through your mind, your spirit, and even the way your inner clarity works. A chosen one is not only called to feel deeply, a chosen one is called to discern clearly, and discernment requires a mind that is not constantly poisoned by fear, pressure, and borrowed voices. That is why mental fog has been such a battle for many of you. You know you are not empty. You know there is more inside you. You can feel ideas, warnings, and wisdom trying to rise. But sometimes the noise around you makes your own spirit feel distant. This does not mean you are broken. It means your clarity has been under attack. The enemy loves a gifted person with a foggy mind, because a foggy mind delays obedience. A foggy mind makes you doubt the instruction. A foggy mind makes you return to people God already exposed. But God is restoring your sharpness, slowly, quietly, deeply. You are beginning to hear the difference between peace and numbness. You are beginning to feel the difference between compassion and codependency. You are beginning to notice the difference between a divine burden and an emotional trap. That difference is called discernment. And discernment is one of the most dangerous gifts a chosen one can carry. Because once you can tell what spirit is moving behind a thing, manipulation loses its costume. Flattery stops working, guilt stops leading. Familiar voices lose their power. This is why they feel uneasy around you now. You are not reacting the same way. You are not explaining the same way. You are not doubting your first spiritual signal as quickly as you used to. Something in you has become still enough to notice what used to confuse you. And when a chosen one becomes still, the atmosphere starts confessing. People reveal themselves without being forced. Motives come to the surface. Conversations expose hidden jealousy. Smiles feel different. Invitations feel different. Even silence starts speaking with a language your spirit can understand. That is not pride. That is training. You are being taught to stop dismissing the alarms God placed inside you. For years, people told you that you were too sensitive, too deep, too intense, too hard to please. But many times, you were not being difficult. You were detecting what they were hiding. David detected courage when others detected fear. Joseph detected destiny when others detected inconvenience. Moses detected holy ground where others might have seen ordinary fire. And now God is teaching you to detect the movement of heaven inside ordinary moments. So do not apologize for the sharpness returning. Do not apologize for noticing. Do not apologize for stepping back when your spirit says wait. Do not apologize for needing peace before access. The same God who gave you compassion is now giving you discernment to protect it. This is the part they do not understand. They thought your love meant you would always be reachable. They thought your forgiveness meant they would always have a place. They thought your patience meant they could delay accountability forever. But the Bible pattern is clear. When God raises a vessel, access changes. Samuel could not keep looking at Saul the same way after God shifted the oil. David could not remain only a shepherd after Goliath fell. Joseph could not return to being the brother they threw away after God positioned him. Moses could not go back to private, hiding after the burning bush spoke, and you cannot go back either. Not to the old agreement, not to the old insecurity, not to the version of you that let people name you smaller than God called you. You can love them, bless them, forgive them, and still refuse to become the cage they remember. That is why your hidden season was never wasted. Every quiet tear became language. Every betrayal became training. Every unanswered message became separation. Every moment you had to stand alone taught your spirit that being alone with God is safer than being surrounded by people who need you powerless. Now the attack against your confidence makes sense. It was never random. The enemy aimed at your confidence because confidence is connected to obedience. If he could make you doubt who you are, he could make you hesitate when God speaks, and hesitation can delay a door that obedience would have opened. But heaven is confronting that delay now. God is not asking you to become someone else. He is asking you to stop agreeing with the version of you that pain created. The trauma named you cautious. The rejection named you unwanted. The delay named you forgotten. But God is naming you ready. Stay with this truth. The real terror began the moment you stopped asking them to see you, because as long as you needed their recognition, they had a handle on your emotions. But when God became your witness, their approval lost its throne. What comes next is the deeper confrontation. It is the hidden agreement you made without realizing it. You did not just suffer from being underestimated. Somewhere along the way, you started shrinking yourself so they could stay comfortable. And in the next part, that agreement must break completely. Chosen one, now we must touch the place you have been avoiding. The deepest wound was not only that they underestimated you, the deeper wound is that somewhere along the way, you started adjusting yourself to fit their blindness, and you called that adjustment peace. You lowered your voice. You softened your truth. You acted less aware than you were. You pretended certain things did not hurt, because you did not want to be labeled dramatic, difficult, or too intense. But every time you shrank to keep them comfortable, a part of your spirit learned to distrust its own fire. That agreement is breaking now. You were not underestimated because you had no power. You were underestimated because you kept translating your power into a version small enough for insecure people to tolerate. And God is no longer allowing that translation to continue. This is the hidden blocker, not their opinion, not their gossip, not their rejection. It was the quiet agreement inside you that said, if I become too bright, I may lose people. If I become too clear, they may leave. If I become too free, they may not know how to love me anymore. But listen to me. Anyone who needs you small to stay near you is not protecting your peace. They are protecting their control. Anyone who needs you confused to feel useful is not covering you. They are feeding from the fog that keeps you dependent. That is why heaven has been making certain rooms uncomfortable. God is not punishing you. He is refusing to let your spirit keep calling cages home. The old spaces feel tight because you have outgrown the version of yourself that once fit inside them. They are terrified because they feel the change before you fully announce it. They sense that you are no longer begging to be understood. They sense that your silence has become chosen. They sense that you can forgive without reopening access, and that kind of maturity removes the old weapon from their hands. This is not pride. This is deliverance. This is not hardness. This is wisdom. This is not revenge. This is God restoring order in a life where too many people confused your love with permission to mishandle you. For years, you carried the burden of proving you were good, proving you were loyal, proving you were kind, proving you were not the problem. But a chosen one who is always proving eventually becomes too tired to move when God gives instruction. That season is ending. You do not need to keep showing your wounds to people committed to misunderstanding your healing. You do not need to keep explaining your assignment to people who only listen for weakness. God did not call you to be endlessly available to those who refuse to honor what they touch. This is why they feel fear now. They do not fear your anger. They fear your awakening. They fear the moment you realize that your identity was never waiting inside their approval. Because the instant you stop asking them to name you, their influence over you begins to die. Earlier, I mentioned something gently, and now I can explain why it matters. I spoke of the genius song because this message is not only about emotions, it is also about clarity, discernment, and the part of you that needs to hear again, without the fog of fear and old voices. Many chosen ones remember a time when their mind felt quicker. You sensed things before they happened. You learned fast. You noticed patterns. You had strange flashes of knowing, and you could feel the atmosphere of a room before anyone explained what was wrong. Then life got louder. Pressure came. Betrayal came. Schooling, survival, bills, conflict, and constant noise began pressing down on that sharpness. What once felt natural started feeling distant, and you began wondering why the gifted part of you seemed buried under exhaustion. This is where the science becomes interesting. Researchers often speak about gamma waves as a brain state connected to high-level focus, insight, creativity, and moments of deep flow. Some studies from places like MIT, Princeton, Harvard, and other leading research universities have explored how brain states relate to learning, awareness, and perception. Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying the nervous system and the way sound can guide the brain into specific patterns. The Genius Song was created as a 7-minute audio built around brain entrainment, with the purpose of supporting gamma reactivation in a simple way through headphones. This is not a replacement for prayer. Hear that clearly. It is not a substitute for obedience, scripture, wisdom, rest, or the voice of God. It is a tool, a simple sound-based support for the person who knows their inner clarity has been buried under pressure for too long. I think of a man who had been out of work for nearly 2 years. He was 51, capable, experienced, and deeply tired. He said the hardest part was not the interviews, it was the fog. He would sit in front of people and know the answer, but the words felt trapped behind a wall. After 11 days using the Genius Song, something shifted. Not magic in a childish sense, not noise and hype. He described it like his mind finally had room to move again, and soon after, he received an offer better than the position he had lost. His story matters because many of you know that feeling. You are not empty. You are not lazy. You are not without purpose. You are carrying wisdom, but your clarity has been buried under years of pressure, betrayal, overthinking, and survival mode. The Genius Song is only 7 minutes a day. You put on headphones, you sit still, you listen. No complicated ritual, no long meditation, no mantra, no need to wake up before sunrise and perform a routine your tired life cannot maintain. There are apps that cost around $15 each month. There are growth courses that can cost $100 to $200. There are retreats that cost $400 to $800. A therapy session can cost around $150. Some professional brain training options cost far more over repeated visits, but most of those paths do not target gamma in this focused way. Dr. Lake made the Genius Song available as a simple digital audio. The original price is $49, but for people coming through this message, it is $39 one time. It is delivered digitally, so there is no shipping and no waiting for something to arrive at your door. And the value does not stop with the audio. You also receive 4 bonuses with a total value of $80. Genius Child is valued at $19. The classic book is valued at $20. Guided visualization is valued at $29. The 5-habit infographic is valued at $12. These bonuses are not random padding. They are designed to support the same restoration from different angles. A child-focused audio, a classic prosperity text, a guided inner journey through key areas of life, and a practical visual reminder for keeping your clarity active day by day. Over 18,366 people have used it, and the refund rate has stayed under 4%. That means the proof is not only in how many tried it, the stronger signal is how many chose to keep going with it after having the chance to walk away. And there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you use it and decide it is not for you, you can ask for a full refund. No complicated conditions. Because it is digital, there is nothing to ship back, and you still keep the $80 in bonuses as a thank you for the time you gave it. I need to protect you here. There are fake pages and imitation products using similar language. Some are only ordinary sounds with no real brain entrainment structure. The original path is the link in the description and the pinned comment, where the real audio, the bonuses, and the guarantee are connected. Now pause for a moment. Take one slow breath. Put your hand over your heart if you can. This is not only a decision about $39. This is about whether you believe God is allowed to restore the part of you that fear, delay, and disappointment tried to bury. If your spirit knows this is your next step, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Follow that path only, and after you do, come back to this truth. The product is not your identity. The tool is not your savior. God is the one restoring you. What matters most is this. You are no longer shrinking. You are no longer asking blind people to approve your light. You are no longer offering your clarity as a sacrifice for someone else's comfort. God is making you peaceful, clear, obedient, and impossible to control. That is why they are terrified. Not because you became cruel, not because you want revenge, not because you are trying to win a human argument. They are terrified because God is doing something through you that proves their judgment was never the final word. And now the final step is not noise. It is not showing off. It is not announcing your power to people who cannot honor it. The final step is sealing this identity before God, so the old agreement can never dress itself as humility again. Chosen one, now breathe and let the old agreement fall. You are not here to perform for the people who underestimated you. You are not here to beg blind eyes to become witnesses. God is not asking you to chase recognition anymore, because heaven has already called your name in places they could not enter. This is the seal over your spirit. You will not shrink anymore. You will not dim what God has lit. You will not apologize for the clarity that is returning to you. The same gentleness that made you patient will now carry boundaries, and the same heart that kept forgiving will now walk with wisdom. They may still misunderstand you. Let them. They may still whisper. Let them. They may still act like your change is pride. Let them. People who were comfortable with your confusion will always call your healing strange, because your healing removes the access they once used without honor. But you do not need to answer every accusation. You do not need to correct every rumor. You do not need to prove every motive. God is your witness, and when God becomes your witness, you no longer have to drag your soul into every courtroom built by insecure people. Place your hand over your heart if you can. Take one slow breath. Let your spirit hear this. You are not the version of you they remember. You are not the person who kept saying yes while your body screamed no, and you are not the one who must suffer to prove love. Say this in your spirit. I release the need to be understood by those who were assigned to underestimate me. I release the fear of being misread. I release the habit of explaining my boundaries until they sound acceptable to people who never planned to honor them. I receive the authority God is building through me. I receive clarity. I receive discernment. I receive courage without cruelty, peace without passivity, and humility without hiding. I will not use my power to wound, but I will not bury my power to keep others comfortable. This is where the enemy loses ground. He loses ground when you stop agreeing with the name pain gave you. He loses ground when rejection can no longer define your worth. He loses ground when the same people who once moved your emotions can no longer pull you out of obedience. You are not hard now. You are guarded. You are not distant now. You are consecrated. You are not selfish now. You are learning stewardship over the life God trusted you to carry. And stewardship sometimes sounds like no to people who only loved your yes. The old version of you wanted to be picked. The healed version of you wants to be aligned. The old version of you feared being left. The healed version of you understands that separation can be protection, and not every empty seat is a loss. They underestimated you because they never saw what God was doing beneath the surface. They saw quiet days. God saw construction. They saw tears. God saw cleansing. They saw isolation. God saw consecration. They saw delay. God saw a deeper foundation being poured inside you. Now that foundation is holding. You are not easily shaken the same way. Words still touch you, but they do not own you. Memories still visit, but they do not rule you. People may still test the door, but your spirit is finally learning that not everyone deserves a key. This is why your peace feels dangerous. It cannot be purchased with guilt. It cannot be moved by pressure. It cannot be traded for acceptance. When God gives a chosen one peace after years of warfare, that peace becomes a wall the enemy cannot climb with old tactics. You are allowed to be kind and unavailable. You are allowed to forgive and not return. You are allowed to bless people from a distance. You are allowed to honor what happened without building a home in it, because healing does not require you to keep sleeping in the room where you were wounded. The link I mentioned remains in the description and pinned comment for those who know that clarity support was part of their confirmation. Follow that path only if your spirit has peace. Then return to this altar of truth, because no tool replaces God, and no step matters if your identity remains surrendered to fear. Your declaration is simple. I will not shrink anymore. Write it if you feel it. Speak it if your room is quiet. Whisper it if your heart is trembling. I will not shrink anymore. Let those words become a line in the spirit that old manipulation cannot cross. This is not arrogance. This is agreement with heaven. This is not rebellion. This is surrender to the version of you God has been forming through pressure. You are not becoming dangerous to people because you hate them. You are becoming dangerous to darkness because you no longer hate yourself. From this moment forward, do not measure your calling by the faces that failed to celebrate you. Do not measure your future by the rooms that closed. Do not measure your oil by the hands that refuse to honor it, because God often keeps sacred things hidden from people who would misuse them. You are entering a season where your silence will speak, your peace will speak, your decisions will speak. The doors that open will speak, the fruit that appears will speak. And when God speaks through results, you will not need to spend your strength defending what heaven is already confirming. God is not proving you to them. Hear that again. God is not proving you to them. God is revealing you to yourself, because the deepest victory is not when they finally see you. It is when you no longer need their sight to believe what heaven said. So lift your head. Your hidden season had meaning. Your tears had witnesses. Your silence had language. Your waiting had purpose. Nothing was wasted. Even the years that felt stolen are being gathered into the testimony God is preparing through your life. You are the underestimated one becoming undeniable. You are the quiet one carrying thunder under obedience. You are the one they dismissed, but God was developing. You are the one they called too sensitive, but heaven called discerning. You are the one they thought was finished, but God was forming. Before you go, seal this with your agreement. Comment, I will not shrink anymore. Let it be your public witness and your private decision. Let it tell your own soul that the season of begging for recognition is over, and the season of walking in restored authority has begun. Heaven has not forgotten you. God has not wasted you. The people who underestimated you were never the authors of your story. They were only witnesses who arrived too early to understand the ending, and now the chapter is turning in a way they cannot control. Walk gently, but do not walk small. Love deeply, but do not live unguarded. Forgive freely, but do not hand your future to people who mishandled your past. You are dangerous now, not because you are cruel, but because you are peaceful, clear, obedient, and impossible to control. And as you step forward, remember this final word. Their fear is not your assignment. Their regret is not your responsibility. Their delay is not your destiny. What God is doing through you will speak louder than every voice that tried to name you before heaven revealed you.